Good morning and welcome to Chentex Multimedia Live streaming for Australian Indian Radio. Once again, thank God it's Friday, but the lockdown is not over yet. Well, what are we up to? Let's find out all of that. Well, right now, as we know that the breaking news is that the lockdown will extend for another 24 hours in the Brisbane and Moreton Bay local government areas after additional cases of community transmissions were detected. So if you live in the Brisbane or Moreton Bay local government areas, wear your mask whenever you leave home. You should only leave home to buy essentials such as groceries or medication, or go to work or study. Or if you can't do either from home, exercise in your local area or for healthcare or to provide health care or support. So those are the cases. The lockdown requirement will be reassessed tomorrow morning pending further health advice. So at this point in time, it has been extended for another 24 hours, which means it goes till tomorrow. But tomorrow morning, the situation will be reassessed. So depending on how we go, whether there are any more cases or not. The current 3-day lockdown ends at 6 p.m. today for these areas: Townsville, Palm Island, Ipswich, Logan City, Redlands, Sunshine Coast, Noosa, Somerset, Lockyer Valley, Scenic Rim and Gold Coast. However, for those 11 local government areas, additional measures remain in place for 14 days until 6 p.m. on Friday, 16th July. Residents must carry a mask at all times outside the home and wear them indoors or if social distancing isn't possible. You must be seated to drink or eat in cafes and restaurants, and businesses and venues must return to the one person per 4 square meter inside and one person per 2 square meters outdoors. While smaller venues up to 200 square meters are allowed one person per 2 square meter with a maximum of 50 people. Private gatherings are restricted to 30 people, and up to 100 people can attend weddings and funerals. Only 20 people can dance at weddings. The lockdown extension and remaining restrictions are there to protect Queenslanders against further transmission of COVID-19. So there we are. Queenslanders, please stay safe. Let's hear from our Premier as she made that announcement today. We are ready to join. Yes, we are ready.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Queensland. So I can report that we have had 5 new cases overnight. So 2 are overseas acquired, detected in hotel quarantine, and 3 are locally acquired. So this means we have some good news today and some not so good news. So I just want everyone to bear with me as I go through it. It's a little bit complicated, but I think we've got a way through. So one is the partner of yesterday's airport case. So quite comfortable about that, but our contact tracers still need to do a little bit of work there. Now, there's another 2 that have just popped up this morning. It's a mother and daughter from Carindale. They got symptoms and were tested yesterday, and they have been out quite extensively around Brisbane. So we really need our contact tracers, and this is the advice of Dr Young, to really get on top of this issue quickly today. So I want to thank everyone who's come out and got tested. So we've had 26,993 tests in the last 24 hours, and we've had 17,436 vaccines in the last 24 hours as well. So that's really good. So what does that mean? So I really need people to listen to this, because it is a bit of a mixed bag, but I think if we all do the right thing, we can get through this together. So the lockdown tonight will end for the following LGAs. Okay, so I'll go through them. Noosa, Sunshine Coast, Ipswich, Logan, Redlands, Gold Coast, Scenic Rim, Lockyer Valley, Somerset and Townsville. But there will be restrictions that will continue to apply, and those restrictions will be in place for the next 2 weeks. That means everyone will have to carry a mask on them and wear that mask whenever they're outside of their home, but of course not when you're driving your vehicle. But obviously that means going to shopping centres, hospitals, aged care facilities, churches, everywhere else. This is our added protection at the moment until everyone gets their vaccine. Okay, now secondly, because our contact tracers need that extra time, we need another 24 hours. So I'm really asking people in the Brisbane City Council and Moreton Bay local government areas, the lockdown will continue for 24 hours. Now, we will come back early tomorrow morning once our contact tracers get on top of this, and we'll look at the case numbers overnight. So I want to thank everyone for doing the right thing, but as you can see, we've just got a situation at the moment that has just come in, and we really need to give the people, our contact tracers, the time to do that. So Dr Young will go through in a bit more detail where the mother and daughter have been. It's early days, we'll get more information during the day, but it is absolutely vital that we get on top of this today, everyone. So I'm just asking for that extra 24 hours. And the final thing I'll just say before handing over to Dr Young is that at National Cabinet this morning we are asking for that reduction in overseas international arrivals. Our hotels are stretched. We are basically at capacity. And the Deputy Commissioner will give the numbers on how many we're at, but we are at that capacity. We're stretched. We need an immediate reduction by 50%. So I'll be raising that this morning at National Cabinet. So thank you everyone for doing the right thing. Please stay safe, and I'll hand over to Dr Young.
Thank you, Premier. So yes, we have 3 locally acquired cases overnight. So one is the partner of the woman who worked at the Qatar airline counter, and he is the index case. So he's acquired it at the airport and then given it to his partner. I have the whole genome sequence result on the lady, and she has the Delta variant. It is not clustering with any known case in Queensland or Australia, and on the international database it looks like it's closest to some cases in India, but we just need to confirm that. So it looks like the gentleman who's now the new case acquired it, probably from international airline crew. He's a luggage handler at the airport, so we think he's probably got it from international crew, given that there's no clustering with any known Delta variant case in Queensland. And then he's given it to his partner. He has now recovered, so we picked him up on serology testing. He's got neutralising antibodies, so we think he's recovered. Now, we already, of course, had done contact tracing because we were always concerned that he might be positive, so we can immediately activate that today and get in touch with all of those people. Then 2 new cases that have come in overnight. At this stage, I don't have any information on how they're linked to any other cases, so we'll work that through today. They're a mother and a daughter who live in a household, so we're checking the other people in that household to see if they're positive, of course, and we've started the contact tracing. Now, I have some very, very, very early information which I will share with you, but as we have further discussions with these 2 individuals, we'll get more information and we'll be able to clarify. They've been extremely helpful and given us some very useful information, so I will share it. So they were out at the Harris Farm Markets at West End on Sunday the 26th from 11:50am till 1:50 p.m. And then they went into the Woolworths in that same complex at 5 minutes after that period. Then on Monday the 28th, they spent most of the day at the Greek Orthodox Community Centre. Tuesday, again, most of the day at the Greek Orthodox Community Centre. But also on Tuesday, from 7:20am to 7:30am, they were at the Espresso Engine coffee shop. from 9:30 at the Woolworths Metro at Turbot Street for 5 minutes, 12:20 to 12:30 JB Hi-Fi at Albert Street, 12:30 to 12:41 the Zara store in Queen Street Mall, and 12:42 to 12:50 at Mecca Maximum Makeup Shop. So we will get more information, but you can see there's a lot of venues there that we're now going to have to go and contact trace. I also need to know whether they're linked to any of our current Delta outbreaks, because of course that's more contagious, or whether to our Alpha outbreak related to the Portuguese Central. I don't know that yet, so I hope to be able to get genome sequencing by the end of today, which will help then with the risk assessment, which is why I've asked the Premier if we could have another 24 hours of lockdown for Brisbane City because of these two cases, because they live in Carindale, but you've heard they've been to a lot of places in West End and the city, and also for Moreton Bay Regional Council because of the airport. We know that that gentleman who's tested positive today through serology has had a lot of contacts, so we really need to look at those two local government areas and manage those. So for another 24 hours, I am grateful that people will remain in lockdown and only leave for those 4 allowed reasons. That's really important. Please don't leave Brisbane or the Moreton Bay to go anywhere else. I don't want to spread this virus beyond where it currently is. Now, those other LGAs that have been in lockdown for the last 3 days, thank you very, very much. It has just helped us get on top of this. So now you'll be returning to those previous restrictions, 1 per 4 square metres, maximum of 30 people to your home, all of those ones that I know people are so familiar with, being seated when eating and drinking and so forth. And that will be in place for 2 weeks, just while we work through all of these contacts, because we have a lot of contacts that we just have to work through and make sure we've found everyone. Now, most important of all, I cannot overemphasise this, most important of all, any symptoms at all, anywhere in the state, doesn't matter. Don't think, oh, I haven't had any contact with someone who might be a case. Don't ever think that. Just come forward and immediately get tested, because we've got to find cases as quickly as we possibly can. That's critical. Thank you.
Well, across most of the cases that we've been monitoring this week, this is very good news. It means the lockdown has been working. We just need to give our contact tracers some more time to finish their contact tracing with the Griffin couple and this new case of 2 people in Carindale. Overnight, our hotel quarantine system hit capacity with international arrivals, domestic arrivals from hotspots and close contacts who required hotel quarantine. Today, we are expecting 259 arrivals, including 58 air crew. Unfortunately, we can't predict how many domestic arrivals will come from hotspots or how many close contacts will need that hotel quarantine accommodation. We know we have 285 rooms becoming available, but it will take 7 days for our police and hotel quarantine coordinators to get a new hotel up and running, and so it's absolutely critical that we see that cut in the number of international visitors, and we would hope that the Prime Minister agrees to that at National Cabinet today.
So thank you to everyone in Queensland for coming out and getting tested in record numbers. We need to keep this up. So as the Chief Health Officer said, no matter where you are in Queensland, whether you're a resident or a visitor, please, if you have any symptoms whatsoever, come get tested. If you are...
There you go. The message is very clear. If you have any symptoms, please do come and get tested. And apart from those 2 LGAs, which is Moreton Bay Regional and Brisbane City, other areas, the restrictions have been lifted. But for these 2 LGAs, it is another 24 hours that the government is asking for. So let's see how it turns out. And don't forget that the situation will be reassessed tomorrow morning. So we'll bring to you the update tomorrow morning on what and how it's happening. And the talk about the National Cabinet. National Cabinet is meeting today. That's why this Premier's Live was a little bit early this morning. So he is our Prime Minister as he prepares to go to the National Cabinet.
Morning, Prime Minister. How was your time in quarantine?
It's important that we do these things. I'll be having my test in a couple of days' time, as we agreed at National Cabinet the other day. But for National Cabinet today, it's a very important meeting. I know the country is very much keen for us to chart that way out of where we are, and Australia has done incredibly well over the course of these last 18 months. But now we need to change gears for the road ahead. I was very encouraged yesterday by the record day of vaccinations. The vaccination program is really gathering pace. Almost 3.5 million doses administered in the month of June. Now, at that pace, we get there by the end of the year, and I think that's very encouraging. So today, we just need to focus on the job for the Australian people, and I have every confidence that the National Cabinet will do just that.
You're confident the states are going to be all right to work with today?
I'm very confident that we'll keep working together for what Australia needs to continue to take us through what has been one of the most difficult times in our history. But the National Cabinet has done before. I'm sure we'll do it again today. Thanks
for that.
And as we know, at the National Cabinet, as our Premier, the Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk has mentioned, that she'll take up two things. One is restricting the number of international arrivals, and number two, having a little bit more, quarantine spaces out of the city and specialized ones. So we were at capacity last night in our hotel quarantine system. So, so those are the things that our Premier will be raising with the Prime Minister at that National Cabinet. We'll bring to you all the updates, and don't forget that today at 4 p.m. we have Suman Dua with the migration update, and after that, if there are any urgent updates, we will come live again with an update. But tomorrow again we will bring to you updates at at 9. At 10 o'clock, we'll have Aapki Sehat, meaning your health segment, which is always presented by the IMIQ, which is the Indian Medical Association of Queensland. So these are some things to look forward to. So today at 4 p.m., we'll have live segment here with Suman Dua and she will be doing a live talk back on migration ka safar, meaning all issues related to migration. And if anyone has any questions, they're quite welcome to do that via the live chat channel or once we go live. So today the focus being on the COVID numbers and everything. Let's take a look at the figures and the latest figures in and around the country. As we know that there has been lots of things that have been happening, but let's look at some of these numbers in and around the country and see how do each state fare.
COVID figures. We're about to hear from the Northern Territory, but here are the numbers we know so far. New South Wales has recorded 24 new locally acquired infections in the 24 hours to 8 p.m. yesterday. Around half were in isolation for all or half of their infectious period. Queensland has recorded 2 new community cases on the second day of lockdown, with a record number of tests done in the past 24 hours. There's good news in other states today, with no new coronavirus cases reported in Victoria or in South Australia. Let's go now to our reporters across the country. We have Laura Hyams in Sydney, Michael Rennie is in Brisbane, and Samantha Johnsher is in Alice Springs. So Laura, to you first of all, the slight bump in today's figures in New South Wales.
It's just a small increase, Ros, of 2, but it still sits at the lower figure than what we had from last Sunday, which was about 30. The only concerning thing about this is that health officials will be looking to identify some of the mysterious sources, because there are still 7 cases of which they do not know how those individuals contracted the virus. Just over a third or so were in isolation at the time, so there is some welcoming factors for that. And in terms of the testing regime, it has actually sunk 59,000 compared to the previous day's figure of getting to nearly 70,000. So there has been a decrease in those figures of testing. That is something that New South Wales Health will be looking to ramp up. In terms of some of the significant cases, we did hear yesterday and into this morning that there was a healthcare worker, a student nurse, who tested positive to COVID-19. The testing for that individual actually came past the cut-off last night, so that has been included into today's figures. That student student nurse had been working at two main hospitals, that being Fairfield and Royal North Shore. And we have heard this morning a close contact of that person, another nurse, also tested positive to COVID-19. It has sent some wards in those hospitals into lockdown. The rest of those wards affiliated with those individuals is still unclear which have gone into lockdown, if there has been any. But of course, with these particular cases, there have been 100 close contacts identified linked to that individual healthcare worker. We have heard from the Chief Medical Officer, Carrie Chan, today, who's reiterated the message that if you don't need to go out, if you're not an essential worker, to maintain that stay-at-home order, something that we've heard both sides of government expressed in the last few days.
We can't afford to have people continue to have the virus going about their business. We cannot continue to allow that to happen, and we are seeing, even though we're seeing the venues that people are exposed at obviously less risk because we're all in lockdown, hospitality venues and the like are not posing a risk. But people going about their business, shopping and interacting with others is causing the virus to continue to circulate, and we can't have that happen. In too many examples, we're seeing workers who are leaving the house with symptoms or going to work with symptoms, and then inadvertently, as they're going about shopping or other activity, they're passing it on to others.
Premier Gladys Berejiklian there. Solara, what's the latest on the vaccine rollout?
Well, the state government has been keen to reiterate that vaccination is one of the key messages and the key things that are going to be needed in a bid to combat this virus. Within the last 24 hours, they've administered over 20,000 doses of vaccine, and a new initiative has been announced to complement that strategy. So we have seen that the announcement that there are going to be 2 mass vaccination hubs, which have been announced, that in Macquarie Field, so that's south of Sydney, and also in the Illawarra region around Wollongong. So that will be an attempt to try to bid vaccination numbers. And we also know that pharmacies are now going to be coming online in a bid to boost those vaccination numbers. There are going to be 22 pharmacies which will be administering vaccination, and that will be for the AstraZeneca part of the pilot program. And we know that they are going to be scattered throughout New South Wales, including regional areas.
Laura, thanks. Now to Queensland, 2 new local cases. Here's reporter Michael Rennie in Brisbane. So, Michael, what did the State Premier say about these new infections?
Well, Ros, it was probably another day of good news, really, when you consider what the fears were that this Delta strain could get out into the community, loose in the community, and we could be seeing widespread throughout the community right now, but we're not seeing that at the moment. So we've got these 2 new cases. One of them is linked to the Portuguese restaurant cluster, was the alpha strain of the virus, and the other case is a new one. It's a 37-year-old woman who worked at the international airport at the Qatar check-in. She has tested positive for the alpha strain of the virus. Sorry, we're not sure which strain of the virus it is as yet, but she has tested positive. She tested positive yesterday, was tested on Tuesday, but the good news is she has been to limited locations. So at the moment, Ros, in Queensland, we are dealing with 3 separate clusters of the Delta strain of the virus. So it's still worrying times. We've got one, of course, attached to the Prince Charles Hospital where the receptionist tested positive. We've got one where a minor has caught the virus in hotel quarantine while in Brisbane. And then the last one, of course, is the Virgin flight crew member who also tested positive to the Delta strain of the virus. But in some really good news, we are seeing some big numbers when it comes to people getting out and getting tested. Almost 30,000 people got tested over the last 24 hours. 18,000 vaccinations have also taken place. So as far as the Premier is concerned, Anastasia Palaszczuk, things are looking good at the moment, but she wants to wait another 24 hours before they make any firm decision on whether this lockdown will end.
That's the update, and right now, as we know, that there's so much that needs to be done, and that our Premier will be pursuing that, reduce the number of international arrivals, and of course to, provide facilities, better facilities for quarantine purposes. But what must whole of Australia do to stop this spread?
Lockdown continues for 12 million Australians. Today, the country detected 13 people who'd been infectious while in the community, and another 14 positive cases in isolation. Nearly all of those were in New South Wales, 24 in total. Half of those were already isolating. There were 2 local cases in Queensland. One was isolating, the other had limited movement in the community. A local case in the Northern Territory was isolating. WA, which is also locked down, had no cases. There were no cases in lockdown-free South Australia, Victoria, the ACT or Tasmania either. New South Wales Health came under fire for incorrectly classifying Minister Victor Dominello a casual contact of Minister Adam Marshall, even though the pair were in close proximity while Marshall was infectious. Dominello has been reclassified a close contact and will have to quarantine despite already testing negative.
I've apologised for the miscommunication.
There are also concerns about a Sydney aged care worker who contracted the virus from a student nurse. It's believed the worker was not vaccinated, although most of the residents at the facility they worked at were.
We'll obviously be looking at the issues of vaccination and status, but I was very pleased that so many of the residents had been vaccinated.
Topping off another chaotic day, more bickering about medical advice for under 40s considering getting the AstraZeneca vaccine.
My advice to everyone is, in Queensland, other states can listen to their own premiers and their own chief health officers, is to listen to the advice that Dr Young has provided.
Don't take medical advice from members of parliament. Take medical and pollies. Take your advice from your GP.
I can't think of a bigger black and white failure of public administration than this.
But the Prime Minister himself was absent. That left Finance Minister Simon Birmingham today fielding questions about Pfizer supplies. He said Australia was at the back of the queue and hinted Canberra could agree to a major tightening up of international travellers tomorrow. Mary Louise McLaws is a Professor of Epidemiology at the University of New South Wales and advisor to the World Health Organisation. Mary Louise McLaws, thanks for your time tonight. If we could go to the vaccine program first, there seems to be a view, at least amongst some states, that one of the reasons for the Prime Minister's intervention on Monday night, suggesting younger people should take AstraZeneca, was a concern that there aren't going to be enough Pfizer doses between now and October. What's your reading on that? Could they be right?
It could be right, because we've had very little information provided about how many doses are still available, how many doses are being delivered around the country. And it's, even if we do give out AstraZeneca to the younger people, there's still 3 months wait between the first and the second dose. And you really don't improve that boosting of the first dose with AstraZeneca if you try to move that second dose earlier. The maximum improvement in your immune system is between 90 days and 120.
So there you go. There's no sense moving that date earlier, and it has to be administered when it has to be. So, that is the case. So we must all comply and obey with those rules and regulations. And of course, that has been the big topic, the availability of the vaccine and the numbers and the Prime Minister's handling of the numbers or the orders. But when you look at the whole thing in totality, there is so many other things that need to be considered as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, let's take a very quick look at our sponsors for the segment.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetrealty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And yes, real estate is the world. Well, right now, moving on to the last segment, let's take a look at some of the functions and events taking place right here in Brisbane. So there you go, well, ladies and gentlemen, the functions and events are planned for Brisbane, but don't forget that most of the events taking place this weekend have been cancelled or postponed. So please, if you were registered for any event, you would get a notification via that platform of cancellation or postponement. But if you were just going to any function, please check with the organizers before going to any function or event, especially this weekend, because of the extension of the lockdown. Many of the functions would have been rescheduled or cancelled. So please, before you leave your home or before you go to any of the functions or events, check with the organizers, because the chances are that the event might be cancelled or postponed. We know that there's lots that have been. There was going to be the poster launch of GoPio Queensland's India Day Fair. That has been postponed. As we know, the Ravishing Fascinities show has been cancelled, postponed. So there have been many functions like that. And today was the anniversary celebration of the Durga Temple in Canmore. That has been put on hold as well. And of course, Aspirilla Kalaikundam and their program. So there's many things that were happening this weekend, but some might go ahead. I'm not sure. But best to check with the organizers. Double check before you leave home and save yourself the heartache of going all the way to a venue only to find out that the function is not going ahead as planned this weekend, as it might be taking place at another time. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the show. Don't forget that at 4 p.m. we are back in the studios here with Suman Dua, who will bring to you a live update of what's happening in the migration scene. And of course, challenging as it may be, there are things that people need to know, and we'd welcome your questions and we will answer them during the show itself. And don't forget that tomorrow, 9 a.m. we will bring to you the update as this lockdown situation is being reassessed by the Premier tomorrow morning. And then at 10 a.m. tomorrow, we'll bring to you this month's segment of Aapka Sehat, meaning your health, which is presented by IMAQ, which is Indian Medical Association of Queensland, and thanks to Cheryl Fernandez, and they do a wonderful job, and every month there's new topics that are being discussed on that show. So once again, thank you so much for being on the show. We will see you back at 4. Until then, remain safe.